get it?
Fellas and ladies. Okay, good evening. We will call to order the regular monthly meeting of the City of Helotes Planning and Zoning Commission. It is March the 3rd. The time is 7:02. And I'd ask the commission secretary to call the roll, please.
Sandra Etheridge.
Here.
Joe Evan. Ron Haza. Greg Michelle.
Here.
Mike McLaughlin.
Here.
Richard Hawk.
Here.
Neil Jensen.
Here.
Keith Snyder.
And we have our city administrator here, Schroeder, and Alex Blue from council is with us. I think that's it for tonight. Mr. Schroeder, do we have any citizens to be heard this evening? Okay, great. We're gonna move to item 4 for our agenda this evening, which is discussion and action on the minutes of the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, which was February 3rd, 2015. Should have received this in your packet of materials. You've had a chance to review. If you have any corrections or edits, to please call to our attention. Otherwise, we could have a motion.
I read the minutes and I move that they be approved as written.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Sandra. So the motion is to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There we go. All right, item 5 this evening is the following. Contingent upon city council approval of annexation and in conformance with the city council ordinance number 560, chapter 380, economic development and annexation agreement, discussion of and action on a request for approval of preliminary and final plats for Brycewood subdivision, unit 1, tract 1, tract 2, and I would ask the city administrator, who's already up here, to present this item.
Thank you. I did want to go over this item. There have already been some questions about what exactly it is that y'all are looking at tonight and what is some of the documentation that was included in packets mean. So I thought it best to go through what is being requested and what has already occurred through City Council. A development company that is titling the subdivision plat as Brycewood Subdivision Unit 1 is proposing a development of single-family residential homes off of Galm Road as you're going towards the state park. This has gone to City Council in the form of a 380 Economic Development Agreement and a pre-annexation agreement, okay? And so essentially what has already been approved by Council is for them to voluntarily annex into the city. The City Council has agreed to allow them to have substandard, what we would call substandard lots, which means that they don't fit the typical half-acre requirement, in order to bring 548 homes eventually into the city of Helotes along Shanefield Road. You're looking at Unit 1. There will be, I believe, 4 units, or possibly 5, but I think 4 units that will total 548 homes of smaller lots than you are typically used to reviewing. That is the pre-annexation agreement, essentially, that because we understand they're substandard lots, if you voluntarily agree to annex, we will go ahead, to petition for annexation, we will go ahead and annex you and go through the platting process with those substandard lots, okay? The 380 Economic Development Agreement portion of this allows for a reimbursement back to the developer of 25% of the property taxes that are collected over a certain period of time to the developer to reimburse them for the installation of utility costs, utilities, streets, rights-of-way, things of that nature, okay? That was approved through City Council last month or the month before under what is being titled Ordinance Number 560. So what you are looking at tonight is the plat of Brycewood Unit 1 subdivision that is going through the preliminary and final tonight. It will eventually, after you either approve or disapprove, go to City Council for final approval and review. That is essentially what you are looking at tonight. Are there questions, specific questions on that? Yes, sir.
Not all flats on here are substandard, are they?
Yes, all of them do not conform to our existing R1,
None of them comply.
no, to our existing R1 zoning designation.
Rick, these are 2 tracks that make up Unit 1.
Yes, 2 tracks.
How many units? Because this looks like about a third of the development, is that about right?
Yes, off the top of my head, I believe there's going to be eventually 4 units. There may be 5, but 4. The total lots that will be in this development is 548 lots.
And to be clear on what has already transpired with the pre-annexation agreement, council has, to this point, approved the 25% give back. Council has approved the substandard lot sizes.
Yes,
So those 2 items are not up for discussion tonight as it relates to the plat itself, plats themselves.
that is correct.
Doesn't sound like there's much up for discussion.
Well, the layout, designs. Other questions to the city administrator at this point about this item?
Mr. Chairman.
You go, Mike, then Ron.
And I'm not sure it's maybe for my interest, but so I'll try to be quick about it. With the financial dealings and everything and the size of this subdivision, has the council considered what it's gonna take over the years to maintain the streets and those types of things, relative to the traffic load they're gonna incur? Because I don't think we have a good maintenance program, generally speaking, and so this to me looks like a high traffic load that's gonna have to be kept up. Yeah, I mean, has that kind of factored into their long
Yes, that
range?
has factored in. We've looked at the, once upon build out, what the total ad valorem taxation will likely be as far as in the way of revenues that are coming into the city. And it will more than compensate what it would take to maintain and service that area. So yes, we have considered that. Now, I will tell you, there's one thing that you said that is troublesome to me in the sense that you say that you don't believe that we have a maintenance program right now that is effective. I will tell you that while we have vastly improved
Okay,
our public works department in the way that we were maintaining our streets and roads, primarily is what you're referring to, and our drainage areas and all of that. The city for a long time was, in my opinion, significantly behind in simple maintenance. And so we have gotten to the point now where our maintenance we are on top of all of our drainage and street maintenance. There are certain streets that need to be repaired. We are looking at that.
okay.
But in the way of maintenance, I just wanted to make it clear, I'm not arguing that point with you. I understand where you're coming from on that, but I think if you would look at what our departments actually do now compared to what they did 10 years ago, I think it's a significant improvement.
Okay, that's fair. But I was just looking at it long range, because, we'll have more of that work to do. And so it
Yes,
has
long range, we're looking at, also, this is also coupled, the part of this discussion that I can talk about is that we have talked about this in relation to the certificate of obligation issuance that we're looking at that would put bridges on 1560 so that we can ensure emergency access. As you know, it essentially turns into a lake during rain events. We're looking at the culvert under Cedar Trail that, as you know, gets overtaken by water. We're looking at the park improvements in Old Town. There are quite a few projects that we're looking at that we were possibly having to put on a back burner, but because of this annexation, the tax revenue is sufficient enough to
Put it back into
to
that
be
infrastructure.
exactly
Okay.
to be
That's
able
kinda
to
what I was
us to
looking for.
accomplish those overarching public safety issues that we know we have to address.
Because that's kind of touching on the big planning piece, that planning and zone, those types of things. I was wanting to hear what you had on that, so
Yes.
that's good.
So, and I can be more specific. So what we're looking at is the renovation or the realignment project We're looking at potentially some, we are looking at the bridge project that TxDOT has agreed to do as long as we pay them $300,000 on 1560. We're looking at improvements on Antonio Drive, Cedar Trail, and we're looking at maintenance for the French Creek drainage improvement that Bear County is funding that we're going to have to maintain. All of those are wrapped up into this discussion on how we're going to fund these things to get them done in the short term rather than wait another 10 to 20 years to get them done. And so this is part of that discussion.
Got it, okay,
Ron?
thank you.
Rick, now, we have one main entrance for 500 units?
There is one main entrance, however, there are interconnections with Laurel Heights, which is the existing neighborhood next to them, and there is a connection into Beverly Hills to the rear.
Okay, so there will be access to that, okay.
Yes.
Is that immediate, or is that in the long term in Beverly Hills?
That will not be immediate, that will be at the completion of Phase 4. But the interconnections to Laurel Heights, the adjacent, will occur as the development is completed in phases. So Phase 1 will have interconnections, Phase 2 will have interconnections.
Okay, Laurel Heights, I'm not familiar with it. How big a subdivision is that?
Approximately the same.
And it has the same one entrance?
Yes.
Question. Do we have other subdivisions with substandard lots?
Yes, Helotes Crossing and Cedar Springs. Helotes Crossing, Cedar Springs, Wingate Run, which is the Garden Home community, and MI Homes, which is the new PUD that's going to the north on what was Buddy Cook's property.
And by substandard, what you mean is less than half an acre?
That is correct.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, Niels?
What is the biggest downside to this type of structure? What is the biggest downside to this type of structure?
I think the biggest downside is the potential for maintenance costs long-term. I do believe that with 548 homes, and at the price point they're looking at, which is $250,000 plus, this is a new Leaf Home development, by the way, $250,000 plus. The property tax collection should more than offset, well more than offset, maintenance and police and fire protection for this. But it's always sort of the unknown. If something in 2 or 3 years happens where a road fails and we're out of the warranty period, that's always a concern. We doubt that's going to happen, but you can't. You never know. You can't answer with 100% certainty on anything. So, I would say long-term maintenance would be the biggest issue with this property. Yes, sir.
You mentioned 250,000. I'm seeing in paragraph 2.2 it says 150.
150,000, but that is the base cost of the home. You have to add in all the upgrades and everything. So they're looking at somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 as the final home cost. New Leaf Homes wasn't ready at that point to make its final determination on what its base price would be, but they knew it would be in excess of $150,000. And that's just base home cost. That isn't upgrades, lot premiums, things of that sort.
Okay, so if it's gonna be, I don't wanna say incorrect, but different, it'd be to our benefit to aim low in the document and come in higher.
That is correct, so that City Council didn't have to revisit the issue of the $150,000. We originally, I believe, had in 175 or 200,000, and New Leaf Homes kicked it back, saying they really didn't have a pro forma yet for the entire neighborhood, and so they wanted it to be 150, knowing full well that it would be in excess of that. The other portion of this that I negated is we are providing we are lowering the fees, building permits to a flat fee of $1,000 per home for this subdivision. That is including all inspections, but does exclude the foundation inspection because their engineers will perform the foundation inspections.
And then, sorry. So if their engineer is gonna perform the foundation inspections, who's gonna oversee how well they inspect it?
Their engineers are obligated by the state of Texas to put their seal on it, and so their engineer is on the line for whether those foundations are inspected in conformance to how they designed them.
And so us, the city, and they agree on which standards to inspect who?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Other questions or comments? Richard?
Yeah, real quick question. Are there gonna be sidewalks
Yes, there will be sidewalks throughout the community.
for the whole community?
Yes.
Rob?
Rick, how wide are these lots?
I don't, they
It's on
vary.
here, yeah. They vary,
The
like
stand-
45 to,
The standard is going to be 45 to 50 by 110 to 120. But they vary depending on what street you're looking at.
or corner.
The annexation timeline is what?
This, assuming council approves the annexation, will happen the first meeting in April.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question for you, or if maybe Alex, maybe it'd be better for you to represent council on this, but to understand how this project fits in with the long-term vision for the city in terms of its strategic plan, in terms of its, plan for growth. I don't know if you can represent council, or if you prefer Alex to do that.
I'm not going to represent council. What I will tell you is what the discussions that I personally had with council, in the sense that if you go down 1560 into that area, this type of neighborhood is not any different than any of the existing neighborhoods that are growing in that area. If you look at the Pulte development on Braun, if you look at all the developments on Braun, if you look at all the developments on Shanefield and the existing ones on Gulm, they are all quote unquote substandard lots in accordance with our R1 zoning designation. So I don't believe that this subdivision does not represent the area in which it's actually being constructed. So I mean that's how I would answer the question.
That last part, does not represent the area.
It does represent the area in which it's being constructed. If the city had, through its annex, or through its agreement with City of San Antonio, where we received all of this area, remember this is all the new area that we received from the City of San Antonio, which is why all of these subdivisions are in conformance with their zoning or regulations. But this is all the area that we received from San Antonio. So a lot of these developments have been in the works for some time through the City of San Antonio's Development Services Office. And so when they come in, we can't, unless they annex, that's the other key to this, unless they annex, we have no control over that neighborhood whatsoever. The city and its ETJ cannot regulate the use of land, cannot regulate the size of a building or the size of a lot, none of that. And so I think what council was looking at, is it better to have increased property tax revenues into the city that allow us to do things within our existing corporate city limits that we've been wanting to do for some time, those capital improvements that I'm talking about? I think that was a big factor. Now, of course, there is a councilman here that can address that from in his own right. But I think those are the types of things that were taken into consideration. And the biggest was, it was representative or indicative of the surrounding neighborhoods in that area.
Is that fair, Alex? I mean, you'd like to elaborate, just so that we understand where you all are coming from.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree with him completely on that. I think the thought is that this neighborhood and others in that area are clearly going to be a part of Helotes area, feel, neighborhood, and it's best to have them within the city limits than to say, well, we're not gonna get annexed, and yet they're still gonna use our roads, they're still gonna use our infrastructure, they're still gonna use all of these other facilities. So it's best to have them in the city to where we can at least garner some control on the building and all of these. The other thing is, the developer could go in, develop the entire neighborhood, and then we would have to wait for the residents to request that by a majority vote of all the people that live there. And then we would inherit the entire property anyway with who knows what standard of roads, who knows what standard of building construction or utilities of any sort. So it's best to get them in now. And I would agree with Rick completely, in that says that the increased property value, the value of that to the city is more than going to offset the expense associated with maintaining the roads long-term. And even with that 380 agreement, and I know that's not a part of the agenda tonight, that number is still a whole lot better revenue for the city than it is to not have anything at all, which is what would happen if we did not actually go through this process. And so we actually can welcome new citizens. They're gonna live there anyway. This is gonna be developed anyway. This allows us to get some revenue, some control, and to be allowed to include them within the city. And I think this may come down the road. I cringe every time I hear him use the word substandard lot, because it's not at all uncommon. In fact, you have large sections of Iron Horse Canyon, that are well under a half acre in size. And in fact, you would have other neighborhoods that even higher, and I know they're not in our city, but places like, all up and down Houseman Road, to include the park at French Creek, to include, Fossil Springs Ranch, homes that are much higher, they're also below a half acre in size. So this is not unusual for this type of location.
I use the term substandard.
Yes, I know, you're technically using that standard. I think it's the right thing for the city, it's the right thing for the citizens, and it allows them to be included within what we've got. That's why our city council unanimously voted for this.
Other comments or questions?
I had one last question I meant to ask with the sidewalks. Are these gonna be concrete roads, or are they gonna be,
No, they'll be asphalt roads.
asphalt?
Yes.
On the plat, I noticed the first two lots at the entrance, there's notes to say that they're gonna be commercial.
Commercial, that is correct. And that was included in the master plan document that was presented to, that was included within the development agreement. Now, I will say that zoning, while all the other lots that are in that, if you notice that in the master plan and on that document, it doesn't say what type of zoning that
Right.
has to apply to that commercial, that will come back in addition to the regular zoning for the rest of the neighborhood. Now, there would be no reason not to zone the rest of it R1. But those, you will have some influence on what type of zoning for those two lots that you place on it.
You said that this commission will have an influence on
That is on the zoning for the two commercial lots. That was not a part of the development agreement. The fact that they would be commercial
Right.
was,
Okay.
but what type of zoning on those two lots
Doesn't go to
is,
that
is
detail.
not, it was not in that detail,
Okay.
yes. It's just assumed that the rest of those lots will be R1.
Is that the three additional units you mentioned, forthcoming, 2, 3, 4?
Those would all be residential,
Those would all be residential.
yes.
And though we're not acting on those tonight, they would be, once the annexation is finalized, that would affect them as well, even though they're not part of this discussion.
You would, yes, if you're asking me what sort of the commission would take, yes, you would,
Because we're only acting on one unit this evening.
on the plat,
Plat.
yes, the annexation is, or the
Right.
zoning is different. So you will actually zone all tracks, with the exception of those two, residential. I'm assuming R1. That would be the only thing that would make sense there. And
we'll
then
see
you
that
would
after
see
annexation.
subsequent plats for the later units in months to come. Actually, you probably see one each year for 3 or 4 years.
Okay, thank you. All right, unless there's other questions, we could put a motion out there and discuss that. I'd open the floor and invite a motion. And this goes back before council, correct, Rick?
The plat, yes,
Yeah,
it will.
the
The final plat.
Final though, so we're approving the preliminary and we're recommending approval.
You're
We're
approving
approving
both.
both, but they're going back, they're
Yes.
going to the council, the final ones. So we're approving both, if that's what the commission's will is.
Somebody wanna make a motion? Is it my usual?
Go for it, Mike.
Okay, let me get the wording in here and read this real quick.
2 tracks.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion.
Please.
Contingent upon city council approval of annexation and in conformance with city council ordinance number 560, chapter 380, economic development and annexation agreement. Discussion of and action on a request for approval of a preliminary and final plat for Brycewood subdivision, unit 1, being 32.7134 acres out of tract 1 of 99.2 acres, and tract 2 being 3 acres out of the called 100-acre tract of land, the eastern half of section 5, volume 6591, page 259 of the official public records of real property, Records of Bear County, Texas. I recommend, I'll vote to approve that. Make a motion to approve it. Move
And
to
that's
approve
as submitted?
it. As submitted, yes, thank you.
Okay. So is there any, and you got the second on that? Motion is to approve the, I assume both
Yes.
preliminary and final?
Sorry, I missed that.
It's all right. Is there discussion on the motion? Mike, or, yeah, go ahead.
Generally speaking, I recognize the council has entered into some agreements beforehand, early on. In Councilman Blue, I got what you're saying, it sounds good and everything. I don't like the way that process worked out in terms of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Kind of short circuits, what we do and in some ways ties our hands, so, that's my comment.
Ron, anything?
May I mention one thing? This isn't, Mr. McLaughlin, this isn't going to alleviate your concerns, but I can tell you that in addition to economic development concerns, council looked at this from a legal perspective, and there are
Right.
legal issues surrounding this. so that's-
I understand, I got that, but it's just, it kind of
I
short-circuited a lot of
understand
this
completely,
process.
and we wouldn't normally, I don't think council would put you in this
Yeah.
position normally, but there are other issues surrounding
Right.
this
Yeah,
particular tract of land.
yeah, I know a little bit maybe, but understand.
Any other comment on the motion?
Call for the question. Do I call for the
Yes.
question?
So the motion is to approve both the preliminary and final plats for the Brycewood subdivision, Unit 1, Tract 1, and Tract 2. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion is approved, and as the city administrator indicated, this will go before city council, the annexation piece. You said first meeting in April?
Yes,
First meeting in April.
and the plat will go before council at the next scheduled meeting, which is March 12th, I believe.
Next week.
Yep.
Very good. Turn to item 6 this evening, which is discussion and action on a request for approval of a conceptual design plan for the renovation reconstruction of a Shell convenience store and fuel station located generally at the intersection of State Highway 16 and Circle A Trail, with addresses of 13041, 13123, and 13147 East Bandera Road, including building design for proposed fuel island and car wash facility and convenience store, fuel station, and Burger King restaurant signage. And before the city administrator speaks to this, do recall that this was an item that we took up last meeting and approved a portion of what was brought before us, and it asked for additional information regarding fuel pumps and car wash design, and also as it related to signage, we had only dealt with one sign, I believe it was last week, which was
Monument.
the monument sign, so.
Good evening. I did want to go over this. City staff did review what was submitted, and I'm trying to make this as uncomplicated as possible, so bear with me. The first issue before the commission is the car wash design. If you recall, you approved the site plan for the entire site, but you did not approve the design plan for the car wash facility or the fuel island facility. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to look at is the car wash. The car wash design that was included in your packet is this, and I need to clarify some things on this. Not in the sense that I don't think that it is a good design from my perspective. It certainly does incorporate stucco and wainscoting around the entire building and the standing seam metal roof. The problem is the red accents, and I wanted, if you recall last time I had to talk to you about the purple,
Right.
and that was shadow effect. This is not, the banding at the top as presented is not going to occur. It should be a continuation of the beige stucco up the building. There will be no banding at the top as presented, okay? So this banding up here goes away, and where there's red accents down here at the bottom, it'll be entirely surrounded in rock wainscot. So, included in your motion should be, so long as you approve, I'm assuming you're approving these things, so please don't, hold that against me. But, so those two things should be included in your motion if you want to make it clear that that is what you're presenting.
So that the entire banding of the top is actually going to be the same
Color,
as the-
stucco,
as the stucco, as the
wall.
building.
That is correct.
And the red, what appears red, is actually going to be the
Ro-
wainscoting.
rock wainscot.
Rock wainscoting.
Yes, sir. Other than that, for the car wash facility, city staff had no issues with the way that this was presented. Chair, do you want me to take questions on each one of these
Yeah, why
items
don't we do
individually?
piece by piece? So first on the car wash, as represented by these images and what city administrator has said, are there comments or questions? And there is the site plan is at the back showing you the location of that car wash. And I would just ask the question, make sure I'm seeing this right. The top image is of the car wash as well, correct?
That is correct.
Yes. Ron?
Rick, there is no signage on the front of this car wash?
No signage is being presented as a part of this submittal for the car wash facility.
Is the implication that there will be signage at a later date?
I can't answer that at this time. All I know is that this approval will just be for the conceptual design plan for the building itself.
Okay.
Okay, because normally they have signage
Sure.
on the front.
On the site layout plan, this goes back to an item we talked about last time, though it doesn't show here, the large oak trees that are at the front of that property, are they still in place?
They are still intended to be saved, yes, sir. There are no, that site plan doesn't include any of the trees on that site.
I didn't want to go over it too long, so that was the last meeting, but where is it relative to the Gasco sign there on that?
They would be adjacent, if you're looking at it from my perspective, they'd be to the left.
Okay.
Of the car wash?
No, of the Gasco monument sign.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But the intention at this point, from where you're looking at it, would be to the left
Here?
of this facility, right over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I was just curious.
But at this point, they have given me no indication that they would not be saved, those trees.
Okay, let's move to the next one then.
Okay, the next thing I would like to address is the fuel island. The design of the fuel island itself. Included within your packets, the site plan indicates that there are 8 gas pumps. This is the same gas pump that was included in your pack, that would be included. Instead of the number here, there would be 8 total gas pumps.
Right now, if I'm not mistaken, there are currently 8 on site. Is that correct?
Do we call lanes or pumps?
Yeah,
What are we
maybe we
calling?
need to
We're
clarify.
calling pumps. 8
So 8
pump.
cars could
8.
simultaneously pump gas.
There would probably
Is that
be
right?
double that because you would have 8.
So you have 2 pumps per lane.
That is correct. Yeah, like you typically have. You can go
Oh, yeah.
pull up to either side of a pump.
All right,
But
so
there's
that's-
8.
That's twice as large as what is there currently.
Yeah.
If you're describing it correctly. We need to-
Correct.
Correct, okay. All right, so keep going.
Okay. And you'll notice on this that it does include the rock columns on the base of the canopy. And I will address the signage that's on the canopy in a few minutes.
Do we need to worry about the hot air balloon?
No, that's from another. Just ignore the hot air balloon.
But they
It's a
could
focal
request
point of the
that.
photograph there.
All right.
It's rule of thirds, it's right there.
Okay. Looking at this, because it had rock columns and it had a minimal amount of signage on it, the staff had really no issue with the fuel island design. I mean, it's a basic fuel island. I think they dressed it up by adding the rock onto the columns, and so generally speaking, we're okay with it. Let's go to now signage.
Hang on 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Signage for the building, if you recall, was proposed earlier for the convenience store, and we specifically excluded it from the approval last time. And what they have submitted here is this sign. We've looked at it from a lighting perspective and from a Texas Hill Country perspective, and we do believe it complies with code for both. And they are allowed a maximum of 2 signs, which would be one on the front facing Bandera and the other facing sort of the point of the triangle, if you will, or towards the existing 1560. So we are recommending approval of 2 of these signs for the facility. It's downwardly lit. I generally think it meets with the design guidelines that we have in place.
Do we have on the locations of those signs relative to the entrances to the building? Are there entrances both on the triangle side and on the Bandera Road side?
Yes.
There are, okay.
Wherever there's standing seam metal roof, there's an entrance underneath.
All right.
Okay. Let me switch to the canopy signage now. Generally speaking, on the canopy signage, which consists of the shells, or I learned today they're actually called pectins. But these shells, by code, they are allowed up to 64 square feet of signage on the canopy. Okay? When you actually calculate those pectins, they're about 7.79 square feet, but the code says that you can have up to 64 square feet or you can have a maximum of 3 signs. So assuming, and by the way, this includes where it goes above the canopy here, but our code says it cannot go above the canopy. The ones that they're proposing, the 7.79 square feet, actually stay within the canopy itself, okay? So they won't be above the canopy at all. But they would be allowed per code up to 3 of those on the canopy, and even though they would be allowed more square footage, if that's what they're going with, they're only allowed 3, okay? So assuming P&Z is okay with this, they're allowed 3 of these per code.
Is that what the request is?
That is correct.
Are you talking about the shell? Little emblem?
Yes, the shell is called a pectin,
Oh, okay.
which I had no idea that was.
I didn't either.
In terms of,
The motion?
well, in terms of the placement of these 3 fuel signs, do we need to speak to that in our motion?
You can if you would like. I can tell you that it is the applicant, because if you look at the site plan, the fuel island goes, I guess, east to west, if you will. They would prefer the pectins to be on the part that's facing the point, on the canopy that's facing Bandera Road, and on the canopy that's facing the new 1560. Nothing on the canopy that's facing the old 1560.
The old 1560, yeah, okay.
So they'll have one facing the store, basically, is what you're saying?
Facing the store, but really it's meant to face the new street that's being constructed, facing Bandera Road and facing towards 1604, towards that point, would be their preference.
So we, depending on how the rest of the folks feel, I mean, we could specify 3 of these signs without indicating where precisely they appear. Leave that to the applicant unless there's strong feelings that they should appear.
That is
certain
correct.
places. Okay. And those signs, this is the representation of what the sign would look like, the Shell Oil sign,
That is, yes, that
that
is,
color and so forth. What you-
yes. Yes, that canopy, per the applicant, is the exact same canopy. It'll just be smaller.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, the last part is the hard part. And not the hard part, but it's the part that is confusing. And that's relating to the Burger King signage that is being proposed. I'm going to pull these out for reference. The Burger King signage that is proposed with Home of the Whopper, okay, on the front of the building facing Bandera Road. It's the only part that says Home of the Whopper underneath. That sign is compliant with code, and I'm assuming that both the Home of the Whopper and the logo itself are one sign. Lumping them together, the square footage is still under the square footage that is allowed for that part of the elevation of the building. So we would recommend approval of the front entry sign.
It's unlit,
It's internally lit.
internally lit. Well, which is it internally lit?
The Burger King is internally lit, and the Home of the Whopper is lit behind.
It is?
Yes.
Or is that- Did we get that?
Yes, that was included on that was what we included on the dais. And I think Grace sent that out to you. Actually, the Home of the Whopper is internally lit as well.
Is that,
Here's the inside, this is the show the light.
all right. So they're
Okay.
both internally lit,
That is correct, according to the submittal that they've presented.
and by square footage, they're fine.
And by square footage, they are correct. They are fine, yes. Um,
Questions on this one?
That Burger King sign is 6 feet diameter.
the Burger King logo is 6-foot diameter, that is correct. So it's a total of 27 or 28 square feet. And when you add in the square footage of the Home of the Whopper, not even looking at the spaces in between, but just the total, it's under the essentially 60 linear foot of that building. If you recall, it's 1 square foot per linear foot of building. And so we are dividing the building in two. One is Burger King, one is the convenience store.
So the convenience store signage is not internally lit.
The
That
conven-
line is, that signage is got.
is downwardly lit, yes.
All right.
Okay, looking at then,
Hang on one second, question?
The front of the Burger King piece, I see the red banding, is that gonna be there as well? Because we took it off, or they removed it from the car wash?
no, the red banding is a part of their corporate logo image, and that was approved at the last P and Z meeting as part of the conceptual.
Okay,
Force out of mind.
okay. I didn't know that.
Go ahead.
Okay, looking at let's go to the right side elevation. This is the part that's facing what will be the new 1560 or the new road. It's on this one, it is the one at the bottom, okay? That, because it's 28 square foot and the elevation, or excuse me, the linear footage of that building is well in excess of 28 feet, it does comply with code. So we would recommend that you approve that Burger King logo sign as well. The one where it says right side elevation.
And that's facing the new street.
That is facing what will be the new street.
Well, Chairman,
Yeah, go
Do
ahead.
you anticipate,
Hang on a second, Ron, go ahead.
Rick, the rear elevation is the one that faces the new street.
No, the rear elevation is the one that faces the existing 1560.
Oh, okay, I see it now.
Joe?
do you anticipate we're approving these signs individually? Approve of this, approve of this, approve of this, or all at once, all at once?
I would recommend that, it is our recommendation that this body approve those two signs that I have already discussed to you.
Separate.
No, together. You can approve those together because I believe they comply with code. The problem with what Burger King is presenting, and what I would like this commission to entertain tonight, is that they're also presenting two additional signs towards what is the old 1560. Okay, and the reason that they're doing that is because they have drive-through facilities, and it's a Burger King standard that whenever you have that black column, that there be the logo, particularly of the drive-through. I think we can kind of understand that because whenever you go to a restaurant, always over, or most of the time over a canopy like that, they have their logo. So what I am asking you to consider tonight is, and by the way, code only allows 2 wall signs. Okay? It's 2 wall signs, 1 per street or pedestrian way with a maximum of 2 signs. So the 2 that are facing the rear elevation towards the new road, the applicant is going to request that this go to council for a variance. So what I am asking, and I believe that they are amenable to 1 versus the 2. So that is another part of the consideration. So what I would like y'all to do is tonight, if y'all are amenable, is to make a recommendation to council on those 2 additional signs facing 1560. Whether you don't like them, or you're okay with one, or you're not okay with any, at least then I have that recommendation that I can then send this to council in March, or at the subsequent meeting, for council to consider.
All 4 of these wall signs are identical though, correct?
That's correct.
So in terms of what the signs look like and the lighting and so forth, they're all identical. What you haven't brought up, is menu boards as additional signage,
Those have not been submitted, and so those are not being considered.
but they will, one assumes.
I'm assuming that they will be, that is correct. That'll
It's
have to
additional
be,
signage to consider here, I mean, to
that
be
plus,
aware of.
that plus the car wash and all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, that will have to be submitted in the future for approval by this body.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
And also the Burger King monument signs, is that
Burger King monument signs are not going to, well, let me.
they're on the deal here, that's why.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. I rejected the monument signage that they submitted, because I knew it was not gonna be approved by this commission. I took the liberty there of sending that back. So what they are wanting to pursue, and this could come back, and it would have to come back to the commission. You would still have to review their monument signage, is they are looking at placing a monument sign at the new intersection of the new street in Bandera Road, okay? You have a Gasco monument sign at the point, essentially, that includes a Burger King logo, and they will be asking, most likely, for a monument sign at the opposite end of the,
Where they have it here on the drawing.
that is correct. The area south of that where they have a monument sign indicated, that will likely not be presented because that's in the middle of a detention area and it's not a good place for a sign, okay? Now, I will tell you, code will allow them to have a monument sign. The question is, what does that monument sign look like? And I can tell you, you would not have appreciated the monument sign that was proposed. And so that will come to you at a subsequent meeting.
And they're only proposing the one, which is down from, not the
At
two
this
that are on
point,
the
they are
plan.
only, what
But
I have
not
understood,
tonight, but
what I have understood from the property owner is that they will likely only present one closest to the new intersection towards Bandera Road. So, I know it's clear as mud, but essentially what you're looking at tonight is the wall signage only for Burger King. And like I said, I do believe that they comply with code for the one on Bandera Road and the one on the new street, or what will be the new street. The question is, what does this commission think of signage on the opposites, on the side that's facing what will be the old 1560? I will also submit to you that this is a unique situation here because I can't think of another property in Helotes that's bounded by 3 major roads on all sides in Helotes. So I think that's where also this is coming up, in the sense that they're recognizing the potential for advertising on all 3 sides of that property. So,
Well, that is, correct me if I'm wrong, that's soon to become 2 streets.
no, the street in front of City Hall will maintain it, will be sold or will be given to the city of Helotes, and we will maintain that
But
street.
it will not go, will it continue to go through?
Yes.
It will.
At the light, or where the light is now?
Not where the light is,
Bandera.
no. There, yes.
You can
It's too early for me to tell you that. I know TxDOT is still in design. We're looking at ways to where we can keep it open, and we're also looking at ways where we can make that, it'll stay a road, but it would only come to City Hall and be closed
That
off.
was my understanding, was that it was going to dead end, so to speak, at City Hall.
I think that's still up for determination by council, and that is going before council on March 26th for the realignment and Super Street concepts. But nonetheless, it will still be bounded by 3 roadways. And people coming south on Bandera Road will be able to take a right at Circle A. The existing Circle A, they will be able to take a right to go into the blue shopping center and go around. So you will have traffic still going in and out of there.
Okay,
So to add they're asking for 4, and a variance would be for the 2 extra.
That is correct.
And we could recommend
Yeah, I know that they're going to submit
something different.
the request to go to council anyway, so I'm just trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone essentially here and say, what are your thoughts, and if you would make a recommendation, that would be appreciated.
I want to back up 1 second, if I can, to the car wash. Is it going to be, there will not be a signage there, coin operation at the entrance, do you know if that's going to be requiring another approval? Or is this going to be,
There, any additional signage that you have not seen so far will have to come back before this body for approval.
well, let me put it this way, if there was a vending operation associated with the car wash, would that need to be represented here?
I would consider that a part of the signage or something to that. I mean, they could have a vending operation with the instructions essentially on it, and that would not be considered signage. I mean, I would not send that back to the commission. If it was something like a menu board, then I would send that back to the commission. Because that, I mean, that's just merely the operation of the car wash facility itself.
Now, are you referring to the lights and the entrance, you know, enter, stop?
Yes. We would send that back to or back to the commission, yes. But if it's only insert your money here box, I would not send that back to the commission.
Question,
One more, and we do expect them to send back one that says car wash on it, another sign.
I would expect them to submit something with regard to the things that are outstanding, in my opinion, would be, just having done this for a while now, they're missing signage for their menu boards. They're missing signage for any directional arrows or anything that I'm assuming Burger King may want to get in to direct people to the drive-through. They are missing signage for the car wash facility itself. Now, they may not submit it, but those are the things that I would typically see come forward for these types of things.
is there, in terms of ingress and egress, is there going, I don't believe I see it, is there, there's not an entrance on the new street into the property?
There will likely be, no, currently there is not. However, there may be a emergency access point off the new street for emergency personnel.
Fair enough, but that wouldn't be for,
At this point, no. They would like one, but TxDOT is resistant to that idea.
That is item 3 there noted.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Richard.
I just want to make a comment. It's that if, I'm thinking the same way. They probably are going to come back with at least another sign or two. And if they came to us now with all of those signs, that'd put us in a better position to negotiate. Whereas if now we approve what's on the table, we don't have any negotiation later. We're going to say, oh, well, you're going to have a sign for your menu, you're going to have a sign for your car wash. Just something to think about. Go ahead.
I think you should consider every sign he said when we're considering this, plus the monument sign. Not that we're approving them, but just that we need to consider that those will be requested with what we're approving right
Yeah.
now. So we basically know what they're gonna come back and ask for, at the minimum.
All right, just a thought.
No, I think you should consider, you need to consider that.
I just wish we had it all on the table at one time so we could say it. Because I hate to cut something out now just on the basis of they might, because like I say, they haven't really brought it.
Well, we can
No, they
do that. I mean, as Rick said, this is for convenience, but it's not a bad idea to try to do it all at one time. But if we wish to see it all, together,
Okay.
we can do that. Though really, when you look at the building signage, I don't know what would hold us, prevent us from acting on
Yeah.
everything but the 2 extra ones in case we want to consider those in relation to others. I mean, one thought I had, just looking at it, and this is just nothing more than what occurs to me now, is in some respects, a 3rd monument sign at the corner of New Street and 1560, in some respects might be considered preferable to 2 more wall signs on the building. But it's hard to know until we see what
Do you see what it is?
the monument sign you said that you pulled back, and you conveyed to them why it was deficient, why you
Yes.
expected it to be deficient,
Yes.
and they were agreeable to,
I think the property owner understood what I was referring to.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. So they're willing to work with you on that.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I mean, I will still tell you that I think the applicant here has been more than willing to work with us in the
Oh, that's a
way
good sign, that's a good sign.
of particularly building design. I mean, this is,
They got a lot invested in this.
well, it's probably gonna be one of, well, it will be, I'm not gonna say that. I was
Okay.
gonna say it's gonna be a very nice addition in the way of gas.
Okay.
Could they, if we recommend not to include the variance of the 2 extra signs, could they come back again when they're asking for the rest of their signs? Or once it's decided, that's it? I mean, council can go against what we're recommending anyways.
Yeah.
But could they come back again and say, with this package, could we include this, or?
No, council, we're approving.
Can you clarify the question?
Well, if we say we approve if we approve 2 of those Burger King signs, but not the 2 that are on the rear elevation, could they come back could they come back and ask again with more
Oh, they can
signs?
always come back and ask
Well,
again.
I think if this is the sentiment of the commission, it'd be similar to what we did last time with approving the conceptual design plan except for the fuel pumps and the car wash, that we could approve the signage that's presented here
Except
if it's
for-
the will of the commission,
except for the
except for
variance.
these 2, which we would expect them to come back with as the other monument sign is developed, or as a car wash or menu board sign is developed, and then we can consider all those together. That might
Yes,
be a way to deal with that.
That is correct, but I can tell you that their preference here, and it's probably getting to the point where I will just defer to the Burger King rep and also to the property owner himself, that I think their preference is wall signage versus monument signage. And so they will be coming back with the variance request for
So,
1, if not 2, of those wall signs to the rear.
Mr., is it Anderson?
So, yes, we have Mr. Anderson, and then we have the representative from Burger King, so which? Okay. if you would-
Whoever would care to maybe answer that question or give us a
Yeah,
sense.
some hint.
I don't know who we should hear from. If you would put your name on the record and at least your business address for the record, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
My name is Robes St. Just, and I'm with Burger King.
Locally here?
Yes, in San Antonio.
So the question that we're talking about is understanding the distinction that at least that the company would make between wall signage and monument signage. And if it were, I'm not saying this is the case, but if it were to come down to a choice between the 2, how the company would prefer to operate.
Right.
And before you answer, correct me if I'm wrong, you will be the actual owner of the Burger King
Yes.
facility. So he isn't a rep, he will be
Fair
the
enough.
owner of the facility.
Yes. And in the case of the old 1560, if the choice was between a monument sign there or a wall sign, we would go for the wall sign on
Because,
1560.
and
Well, because if you look at the elevation of the whole building, there's really nothing on that building. So it's kind of, it's dead. So without anything on that building, we would prefer to have at least the 1 wall sign and forego the monument sign. Because then you would have a dark wall with really nothing there.
And it's higher, so visually it'd be seen more. That makes sense. Yes.
so what's the sense? I mean, we still, if we don't act on it tonight, though, we still could go that direction once we saw how everything else developed. But it's good to know at least what your perspective is on it, in terms of the wall signage versus the monument signage.
And I do agree with the way you're coming across in that, and we can do this, provide you with a full set of plans that would incorporate the drive-through signage and that, if that would.
I mean, I think that we would probably prefer that without prejudging, without not wanting you to interpret that as a rejection of these extra 2, but saying we'd rather wait until we see everything else before we act on these additional 2. I don't think,
Give you the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Does anybody have any other questions as it relates to what we've seen? To review, based on what we've been talking about, as we think about a motion, there's several items here that we've looked at. There was building design for the car wash, and as the city administrator pointed out, there were two issues there to be aware of and to address if we wish. One was the, what color is the band? Red?
Red.
The red
The
band.
red band is actually gonna be beige as the stucco of the building is, and then we would put that in, but that's already planned, correct, Rick? I mean, that's just a,
It is planned, but I would include it in the
right,
motion.
fair enough. Additionally, what it's showing is the red on the bottom is actually going to be the rock wainscoting. And that's for those two things are for the car wash. We did not have any changes or questions about the fuel pump design. Sandra?
And at that time, could we say, please keep the two large trees to the left of that?
Well, we could
since that's
reiterate that.
kind of
That was in the
area,
motion we
just-
did last time.
Or do we need to? Would it hurt?
I don't know if we,
We've expressed to the applicant multiple times that we would like him to save those trees. I can
Okay.
tell you that from a legal perspective, he has the right to remove those trees, but
Okay.
we have asked him to, and I believe
Mr.
every
Anderson,
indication has
if
been that you would.
name and address on the record, and please.
Okay. Here or on the
Yes.
outside?
Right here.
Kurt Anderson, 8102 Military Drive West, and I'm the owner of the Shell Station. The trees in the front are not going anywhere.
Okay.
And that's going to be a large landscaped area, which will probably be required to have sand filters. We're going through the process with the TCQ right now. A lot of the water drains that way.
Okay.
So there'll be some sand filters, maybe, we're hoping not retainage at that area, because that's not it's a bad place for it, but certainly sand filters. So that's going to be a large landscape area.
Great.
We'll do a good job on it.
Great.
But the trees are going nowhere.
It's good to hear, and the commission's sensitivity to that is based on the fact of where this is. As Rick said, 3 major intersections. This is a central spot
Correct.
in the city. So,
Correct.
Yeah, I think previous P and Z member from many years ago, Lenore Hill, I think, chained herself to those trees, or there's some story like that to keep them there back in the day. So yeah, there's some feelings there from way back.
But if there's any other questions that I can answer about the design or,
I think we've worked through them, but we'll let you know if there's an additional. Thank you. So we've got the car wash, the couple items on the car wash. There isn't anything that we've recommended or would recommend to change to the fuel island design.
The only,
Yes,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I know Rick addressed it, the pectins, they were gonna put them down even.
Signage.
Right.
Signage. So go.
They were gonna put those even or not go above the top. Do we need to
Yes.
address that?
Yes, you do.
And that
And they
there'll
were
be
gonna have 3, right? Limited to 3.
Yes, you do.
So we could say 7.79 square feet, or is that the size that you said?
Well, they can actually go larger than that if they wanted by ordinance, but we would say within, not to extend above the canopy.
That is correct.
Within the required square footage and not above the canopy.
That is correct.
So if we shift to signage, and if you look first at the fuel station signage, we would indicate 3 fuel signs, the pectins,
I guess they're called pectins. I don't.
whatever,
Yeah.
3 of them, 3 Shell oil signs on the canopy, but not extending above the canopy. Is there sentiment on the commission though about should we indicate where on the fuel, on the
I don't
canopy
think so.
where these should appear, or is that everybody comfortable allowing the applicant to make that
Let them
determination?
figure it out.
That's their,
I think,
Let them figure it out.
Convenience store sign and Burger King sign, the home of the Whopper deal. Were there any comments or requested edits to those 2 signs? One is lit internally and one is lit by lamp.
Convenience store sign is externally lit, the Burger King is internally lit.
And the home of the Whopper is internally lit. Is that correct, Rick?
That is correct.
And then the final sign would be, that we would be approving, would be the, I'll just label it the right side elevation as it is, that Burger King wall sign. We would not at this point act on the rear elevation, 2 signs, I'm saying that right, the 2 Burger King signs facing 1560 at this point.
The rear elevation.
Or what are we gonna, is it still
Rear
gonna be
elevation.
1560? What's it gonna be?
Well, 'cause it's
Oh, I
on
don't know
two.
what.
Say rear
I'd
elevation.
refer to what it's called in the drawing.
Rear elevation.
Rear, okay.
Rear road.
Rear, yeah. The back.
All right, so that's not a motion, but that's just a summary of what we've been talking about. So, we can talk about it more if there's a motion, somebody should make one, and then we can make sure we've got the pieces in place and talk about that.
Sanders can make
Feels bold.
Who made motions when I was gone?
We just sat here.
We just said it, we waited.
I'll make a motion.
Sandra, thank you.
Action on a request for approval of a conceptual design plan for renovation, reconstruction of a Shell convenience store and fuel station located generally at the intersection of Highway 16, Bandera Road, and Circle A Trail, with addresses 13041, 13123, 13147, East Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas 78023. Real property more particularly described as CB. Do you need
Don't do it.
me to
Don't
say
do
all
it.
that?
Don't do it.
Okay. Respectively, and the approval of building design for the proposed fuel island, with the exception of the red band at the top of the building being beige, and that the red base
That's car wash.
continues as rock. It's what?
That's the car wash.
Oh, I'm sorry, the fuel island, I'm sorry, you're right. The fuel island as is, allowing for 3 pectins not to extend above the canopy. Thank you. And now going to the car wash facility, that the red band being, at the top being beige and the red band at the base continue with the rock wainscoting. And for the signage for the convenience store, the fuel station as above, and the Burger King restaurant signage for the, right side elevation and the front of the Burger King building with the home of the Whopper to be approved as is, and not to, recommend request for the variance for the other 2
I don't know that we have to
elevation.
put that in the motion at
signs.
all. We just
No,
leave
you
that
don't have to.
aside.
Okay.
And just, can you please clear, you're talking about for the convenience store 2 signs?
The convenience store's 2 signs
Convenience store
on both
is-
sides of,
That's right. And it is, to clarify, it is the Helotes Country Store
That is correct.
signage,
Yes.
both places. Sandra, before there's a second, you said about the rock wainscoting, do we need to specify height, 3 feet? Or is it necessary to indicate that?
I said continuation of what's already there, but
I mean, I don't,
We didn't on the building itself.
Still talking
so
about.
leave it alone then. I mean, the wainscoting will speak for itself.
okay.
All right.
Second one,
Yeah, Joe?
I'll second.
Second, all right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there discussion about the motion? A lot of pieces here.
Just to clarify, we are saying, at this time, we are not approving the Burger King signs on the rear elevation.
They're not part of this motion, that is correct. All right, so to read back the motion as best I can, and I may not go precisely the same order, but you tell me if
All right.
you get this. Hang on, Rick?
Okay, so clarification on the rear signage for Burger King. So the commission does not wish at this time to make a recommendation to council either, because you want to see
Correct,
their the rest of the sign submittal.
correct.
Okay, all right.
So the motion is to approve the conceptual design plan for renovation reconstruction of a Shell convenience store and fuel station located at State Highway 16 and Circle A Trail, 13041, 13123, and 13147 East Bandera Road, including building design for the proposed fuel island as submitted, for the car wash facility with the requirement that the band at the top of the facility be beige as the stucco, that there be a rock wainscoting around the base of the building.
And no red base.
You rock wainscoting continue. So we have to
Continuous
specify-
rock wainscoting, that's correct. In terms of signage, that the convenience store signage be approved as submitted, and that was 2 separate signs. That the front Burger King signage be approved as submitted, and that as well was 2 signs. And that
Front
the-
and,
And the the right side elevation Burger King signage be approved. And that's the extent of the motion.
The only-
Any further discussion on the motion or clarification needed? Michael?
Yeah, just a little bit of clarification on, you mentioned Fuel Island as presented. We talked about the
Oh, the signage, thank you.
pectins going below.
I missed that, appreciate that. So 3
Pectin.
Shell Oil pectin signs on the fuel island that shall not extend above the canopy. Thank you. All right, any further discussion of this? I would reiterate the last point that the city administrator made, that we are reserving action on the rear elevation Burger King signage until we can see the rest of the signage, but we expect we'll consider it at that point. And again, thank you for your patience and for being willing to hang on to those trees. Those are important trees. All in favor of this motion as indicated, as presented, please signal aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so the motion is approved. And I guess we'll see you guys back here next month or thereafter. Thank you for working with us.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7 tonight, move forward your head. Discussion and action on a recommendation to council of the city of Helotes. A request for a variance, chapter 66, signs, section 6650, commercial signs, multi-tenant shopping center, business park or office complex, monument type. For a multi-tenant monument sign for Franklin Development Company, 18591 East Bandera Road. City Administrator, do you have any comments on this? Somebody representing those folks tonight? Okay, in case we have any questions.
I would actually reserve my comments until after the applicant has the ability to
Okay.
speak.
So why don't you, if you won't mind coming up and tell us about the request and the nature of it, if you just put your name and address on record for us. Thanks for your patience.
My name is Jay. I'm with Goodman Sign Art, and I'm representing Franklin today.
All right.
We're at 4226 Blanco Road in San Antonio, 78212. The customer is asking that we ask you to forego the monument requirement of a stucco bottom because he feels that the grade for the road going by there is at a level 8 feet higher than the sign, and therefore that no one would see the stucco bottom piece or foundation to the sign. What he's hoping to get approved is a freestanding pole sign with whatever landscaping requirements are needed. This grade on this road is his only real argument to this. Besides the fact that he's way back on that road, not really by anybody, and the people that are his neighbors also have pole signs. Now I understand that they were absorbed and they were grandfathered and all that, but he's asked me to come here anyway and just ask for your consideration in this matter.
Is there existing signage there right now?
On his property, no.
No?
On his property, no.
All right, questions, or maybe stand by if there are questions.
What is the total height of this sign?
15 feet.
And you're saying the road is approximately 8 feet above?
Correct. It's a really steep grade, and it's 8 feet above, and you're only going to see maybe not even one of the directories at that height.
How far back from the road is he placing the sign?
He's placing the sign directly behind his property line fence, but that easement I would guesstimate to be 25 feet, 30 feet coming off the road to his property fence. And it's straight 45-degree drop. Now, these are pretty significant poles here. These aren't some 2 by 2 or 4. We have 8 by 8 quarter-inch poles we're planning to put in there. These aren't some any little puny poles by any means. They're about 800 pounds.
Yes, go ahead.
Would you consider rocking the poles?
We would consider rocking the poles. I have an alternative drawing in the event that this just isn't going to go for the sake of saving time, maybe, if you would like to look at that.
Yeah, Rick, do you want to
Yeah,
jump in?
let's hear you
Before
first.
You're enjoying this.
Unfortunately, I mean, I think I'm the bearer of bad news for the applicant. I believe it sets a dangerous precedent for how we regulate signage within our ETJ. The whole point of signage, of the sign ordinance applying within the ETJ is that once they become part of the city, their signs are already compliant with code, rather than having to deal with grandfathering and things of that sort. So while I appreciate where the applicant is coming from, I just am concerned it sets a precedent that we will have to live with repeatedly as people come into the commission on future signage, particularly since this is a growing area of the city and the city can't unilaterally annex. Remember, we have to be petitioned for annexation, so I think that this is going to happen quite routinely. The other issue, I understand the grades, but you can still see very clearly into the property included within the map or within the picture in your packet. You can still see directly into the property, and you're actually looking down on the sign. So we reviewed the sign. We believe it complies with code, but for the minimum 18-inch rock base, we would recommend that your recommendation to council be that it include a rock base and also that it include the addressing as we do on all other rock bases.
The business that is there currently, is that, that's been there, correct? Or is the business itself new?
The business itself is new, and they are going to be adding, it looks like 4 tenants to that property.
And there's no signage on
There's
the
no
building
signage.
itself?
Nowhere to be found.
Was this picture taken from the road?
Say again?
Was the picture taken from the road that you?
It's taken from Google Maps. I don't know if the applicant submitted that or if Grace, typically Grace will do the Google images for sign locations. And so it was a Google Maps image.
No, it's a Google Map image, yeah. We're right by the drive, right behind the fence line is where we're planning on going.
They're referring to this Google Maps image.
Yeah. So come point where you're talking, so make sure to stay in right where that drive is.
Is this the same thing?
This one?
But that is the view into the property.
This is
That's
not
how you
the-
view it from the road, this, right?
That's the road
This is
view.
viewed from the road?
If you're in the driveway, but if you're driving by at 45, no.
You say it can be up to 15 feet. Does it agree? Does it go for it?
Okay. You go ahead, Robert.
Okay.
On your sign, the lowest tenant sign, how far off the ground do you project that as being? The one that has no name?
85 inches. That lowest one, it looks like is now gonna, we made that the address number, I believe he mentioned, and it looks like there's gonna be 3 tenants. I have another drawing that might help.
Okay, so there's only gonna be a total of 3 tenants?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said 4.
So you're envisioning an address sign on that fourth. I got it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I was noticing in the ordinance about the height, that on Bandera Road, the sign can go up to 15 feet high,
Correct, that is the height.
rather than 12 feet.
We are at 15.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Seemed like there was something else that was higher, but,
So the issue really is that why he's here for the
Yeah.
variance is the monument It's 7 foot.
Yeah, and I would add that, like the people here before, we're willing to work and get a solution to this situation. If it's just 18 feet, 18 inches of rock structure that needs to go on the bottom of this, as it is, to look, I mean, this is an exaggerated view. I mean, if that's what we need to do, we will do that. But there was other discussions about this being solid and background, and
I did my review, and I'm not concerned about anything other than the rock base and the address.
okay.
And the address appearing on the rock base.
Yes, I didn't notice the 18591 actually there.
It's
I
on
think,
some, but not,
I
it's on
think-
one, but not the other.
yeah, I mean, I think it there is probably sufficient, but I
So-
mean, the big thing is the base, so that it's not a freestanding pole
But
sign.
is that sign, if we put an 18-inch base under it,
It still sort of looks like a pole
it's
sign.
still a pole sign and an 18-inch base, isn't it?
That's why we're here, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just make it clear what we're talking about.
I understand.
Right.
On, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on a different, is it illuminated?
No, not unless it needs to be,
The application was for non-illuminated.
correct.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant's representative? The issue before us is whether to recommend a council approval or disapproval of a variance request. I think we're good. So we need a motion. And remember, this is a recommend item to the council, the variance, right?
It is, I mean, if the applicant, if this gentleman is able to make a decision based upon the owner of the property, I mean, he could forego the variance process, and you could approve it with, assuming that he was amenable to it. I mean, but it's still his right, he's paid his money, he can go to council if he decides. But as presented, I don't want to confuse the issue, as it is on the agenda, it is a
Right,
recommendation item, yes, that is correct.
So we need a motion of some type.
Mr. Chairman.
Michael?
I move to recommend disapproval to the City Council of the City of Helotes on a request for a variance to Chapter 66 signs, Section 6650, commercial signs, multi-tenant shopping center, business park, or office complex monument type of the Municipal Code of Ordinances for a multi-tenant monument sign for Franklin Development Company located at 18591 East Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas, 78023.
I'll second.
Second.
Any discussion on the item?
My feeling is that, like the city administrator is saying, that, you know, that was a big reason for what we did, in that area of the city to keep the signs under control. We've gone to great lengths here within the current city limits to have a certain, presentation of signage, and it's worked out well generally over the years, and so we want to continue that in this new area.
Who seconded that? Neil, any comment, Neil? Any other discussion? Okay, so the motion is to recommend to council disapproval for the request for the variance to Chapter 66, Section 50, commercial signs for the Franklin Development Company, 18591 Bandera Road. All in favor of the motion, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This goes to council next, so, just know that this isn't, there's another opportunity, I guess, to address it, see what folks have to say, but. We actually gotta move on to the next one, but afterwards, when we're done, you're welcome to talk with city staff, about any of this, might be the best way. Thank you. Number 8 tonight is discussion and action on a request for approval of a conceptual design plan for the construction of a skilled nursing assisted living facility entitled Honey's Memory Care Home, 12445 North FM 1560, including site plan, signage, building design, exterior lighting. And you guys are all here for that, if I recall correctly. So Rick, do you need to, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, staff has reviewed this item. First off, let me just address the use of the property. If you recall, this body submitted a recommendation to City Council, and City Council eventually took action on these 2 tracts of land for an assisted living type facility, and Council did approve that specific use permit for these 2 properties, and so the use is already granted. We did look at staff reviewed the site plan in relation to 1560 and also Paragon, the building elevations, and you will notice that the building elevations for this property are almost identical to the building elevations for the development that's already there, which from a staff perspective, we feel that it's a nice looking development. And we also reviewed the exterior lighting. The exterior lighting is proposed to be nighttime friendly or full cutoff in the parking facilities, and so we would recommend approval of this item as presented.
All right, discussion pieces.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question, is this second part, is that where the home is currently located on?
That is correct.
Okay, so is that gonna be incorporated or raised or?
That'll be taken down.
That'll be what?
Taken down.
Okay, because I remember the first time that, I guess it was gonna be utilized as a home or something like that.
It's going to
so
be
that's-
utilized as a home or where the management of that facility could stay, but they have opted to demo that and create an Alzheimer's unit on that property in addition to the existing assisted living facility that is there. It will be completely surrounded, and I believe that's probably state law, it's completely surrounded by fencing. The fencing that is proposed along 1560 will actually be rock columns. That should be,
Yeah, there's an iron fence in there.
there,
Mm-hmm.
there should have been a
Yeah, there is.
yes. Will be rocked columned along 1560. The area to the rear, however, will be what is required per code or per state law, and that's going to be ornamental iron fencing. So you'll have essentially ornamental iron, you'll have rock columns, and the rest of it inside the property will be ornamental iron.
So signage is not applicable?
There is no signage on the existing facility, and that's what they're proposing here as well.
Okay.
Is it gated or is it?
The Alzheimer's unit is gated in that it is meant to, yes.
Just around the house or around the building or at the parking lot is what I'm.
If you're looking at the site plan,
Yeah.
you will notice 2 dotted lines. They're very similar. The area along 1516, all of this is proposed to be the rock column, plus this will be rock column as well. All of this area over here and through here to that structure will be the ornamental iron that is here. And then this interior around the building will be the same as
There is,
this.
okay.
So the parking lot's gated?
The parking lot is not gated, but the facility around the
This is-
proposed landscaping garden and the facility
Okay,
itself
so
is
it'll
gated.
be-
But there's
okay, a
parking
walk-through gate.
associated with the new
I am-
facility
That is
as well,
correct.
but that's with inside that interior gate, interior
Yeah,
fence.
it's
No,
gated.
No,
the
it's
parking
not.
is outside of the interior fence.
Gotcha.
They will have essentially a outside area around the proposed building that will be gated where the exit doors for the facility are.
If you want to look at that, you can. If you want to look at this, you can.
Is the current facility in operation, has it begun?
Yes, it is, and I believe it's almost at maximum capacity.
Which is how many, remind me?
There are 16 rooms. I don't know how many, 16 individuals.
And the proposed new one is same?
16.
I recall when you were last here, I don't know, a couple of years ago now maybe, there was a lot of discussion about not just parking, but traffic with 1560. presume there'll be more caregivers associated with the newer facility. Do we need, any sort of consideration regarding that intersection, which at busy times of the day, Paragon 1560 is
The
challenging?
the ingress egress off of 1560 is actually proposed to be emergency access only. So all of the ingress egress will come off of Paragon Road.
Looks like Conroe.
Well, that intersects with 1560.
It dumps too.
It does, but the traffic impact analysis worksheets for this facility, they're not sufficient.
Not a lot of greenery.
They're not of high enough number to justify doing a full traffic study for the development.
No, it's not necessary.
Current parking lots.
Yeah, understood. Did you have something, Richard?
No, it's,
Regarding the lighting with the existing facility, I believe that is, nighttime friendly,
That's correct.
but when I'd go by, different times of the night, it seems like it's always on at night. So you have that glow, that reflection off of the grounds and everything. Does the lighting have to be on all night, or can
That
it
is going to be a question. Who is fielding questions? Danny? If you would come up, please, and
If you just, introduce yourself for the record, for your side. Thank you.
Danny Kitchen, I'm the owner and the operator of the facility. For the safety of our residents, we are a 24-hour facility, so we do have staff that comes in. We are open 24 hours a day per se, so we do keep those lights on at night. So
or maybe cut some of them off, or,
there's 3 pole lights.
okay.
So I mean, there's 2 in the
Kinda
parking
tough.
line. There's 1 out in the front of the building. So
I'm sorry, you
Not
said,
as part of the motion, it's just,
You said there's
opportunity
three?
to ask the question.
I'm sorry, I didn't know. You said there's 3 lights?
yes, there's 3 pole lights currently at the current location.
and there will be 3 proposed.
It just adds to the reflection, and yes, they're nighttime friendly, but, you got the reflection for the neighbors around there. It's
Sure.
just looking at that.
The, you asked about the signage. We have no signage, you said, associated with the building?
sir.
Thank you.
Rick? Thought you had something.
No, I was just here to answer any other questions.
No? All right, straightforward enough this time, huh? And use has been settled, obviously. Anything related to drainage that would be appropriate at this stage, I don't imagine.
I would have to go back and, the drainage plans would go to council for this facility. I don't remember if they sized the existing detention pond for both facilities or not. That's something I'll have to go back and look at. But if additional detention is required for this facility, it would have to go back to council to approve that stormwater management plan.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Regarding the drainage, I know we'd spoken a couple of times, the water seems to pool there at that second, or that entrance closest to 1560.
Yes, we've worked out a solution on that. They will be cutting a channel.
That's what you were telling me about?
Yes,
That's
they will
still
be-
in, okay.
Yes, they'll cut in a channel through that existing driveway and essentially include a grate over it so that water can flow through. It's just taken some time for them to find a contractor that
Sure.
will do the job.
Okay.
Do you have a time frame for that yet?
Yeah, we have a contractor engaged, so hopefully next week,
Okay.
next 2 weeks, we should start.
Okay,
So in short order.
sure. Thank you.
If there aren't other questions, a motion would be in order. Michael?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request of the conceptual design plan for the construction of a skilled nursing assisted living facility entitled Honey's Memory Care Home on property located at 12445 North, FM 1560, Helotes, Texas 78023. To include the site plan, signage is not applicable, the building design, and exterior lighting, with drainage work to be done at a later date, drainage analysis, I guess,
If necessary.
if necessary. Thank you.
Is there a second? Yes, okay. further discussion of the motion?
My only comment, and I know the lighting, we've talked about, if there's a way you can not cut it off, but do something about it, just my comment. For what that's worth. Because the tennis courts are light enough as it is. Rick?
They put shields on them.
Say some electricity.
All right, so the motion is to, recommend.
No, this is an
Sorry,
approval.
The motion is
It's
to
approved.
approve the conceptual design plan for construction of a skilled nursing assisted living facility entitled Honey's Memory Care Home, 12445 North FM 1560, including site plan, building design, and exterior lighting. There is no signage, and if there is a need for a drainage study, that go to council. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. This will go forward from here. So, thank you all for your patience tonight. At this point, that concludes the agenda. Ron, with the motion?
Mr. Chairman, may we adjourn?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of adjourning? We stand adjourned at
Aye.
8:38. Please turn off the mic.